The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning. Now, I got to recap because we had some stuff happen yesterday. I don't know if you guys were affected by the great Facebook meltdown of 2019, and let's hope that it was the only one, right? Because we do a lot of stuff here on Facebook and on Facebook Live. So those of you who watch us on Facebook Live normally, we were not able to get on Facebook Live yesterday at all. Not when we were live, not later. We went ahead and did our show because we do, and we were live on YouTube. And please, if you come on Facebook Live and you can never see us, if there's ever an opportunity when you can't see us, look and see, because if we can't be on one, we're always on the other. But what happened, of course, in the kismet of life, we had the amazing guest, Lisa Ackerman, founder of TACA, on the show yesterday, and she was poised. We had this whole Facebook contest that we were going to do because she's prepared to give away 5 tickets to the TACA conferences that are happening in the next year. So just to clue you in, they have a conference that happens in a couple of weeks in Atlanta, Georgia, and then they have one that happens in the fall that happens in Costa Mesa. So Lisa had offered, she said, you know, we know sometimes it's easier for people to get to one or to the other. These are great conferences, amazing conferences where you can learn so much. So she said we'll give away 5 pairs. So we'll do 5 different people. We will give 2 free tickets to go to the conference. You'll have to find your own transportation and accommodations when you're there, but we'll give you the tickets, the admission to them. So the deal was that you were supposed to like our Autism Live post on Facebook, but we couldn't get one on there. And that we were going to pick a winner by today. Well, since that didn't work, here's the new thing. So we're live on Facebook right now. So anybody who wants to win these tickets, we need you to post on there. We're going to give you, I think we have to give you, in all fairness, 24 hours. We were going to announce the winners today, but let's give you 24 hours from right now. If you post on the site and have your name, and well, obviously your name is on there because it's Facebook, right? But we want you to say, you have to like the post too. You have to like our you know, the show today, the post on Facebook Live. And then you have to say which city that you want to go to. Do you want to go in a couple of weeks to Atlanta, or do you want to go in the fall to Costa Mesa? So tell us which one that you want, and then tell us why you want to go, because we want to give these to people who want to go and who will use the tickets. So I'm going to call that open now, and then tomorrow, Autism Live, we're going to be the arbiters of this. It's probably going to just be me, and so you can hate me later on. But I'm going to have to pick 5 people to get 2 tickets each to be able to go, and then we will notify you between Friday and Monday, because I don't know how long it'll take me, because I don't know how many responses we're going to get. But I hope we're going to get a lot, because it's a really worthwhile thing. So that is officially open now. Like the post that you're watching on Facebook Live. If you're watching on another format, you need to go to Autism Live on Facebook and like this post with this show, and make sure that you put which city that you want to go to and why you want to go. Now, Traven is showing you some of the other ways that you can connect with us and other places that you can watch, which would have been helpful to you yesterday because you couldn't get on Facebook Live. I don't know what happened. I don't know that I want to know. but I'm sure that they were having a bad day over at Facebook Live. In any case, we were pulling some hairs out over here because we were like, why can't we get on? We thought it was our internet, and then we saw that the world was having that problem. In any case, we got a big show for you today. I'm so very excited. As I mentioned, we're going to be live with you for the next 2 hours, covering autism from a 360-degree perspective, talking about all different things having to do with being in the autism community. We intend for that 2 hours to be as interactive as you would like it to be. So you can be writing in right now on Facebook Live. We'll check in on that periodically, but you can also write in our live feature that's on our homepage, which is autism-live.com. If you, at the top of the page, there's a button, and it says live when we are live. And for some of you, depending on which search engine you use to find us, it'll just pop open. Others, you have to click on it and it will open. I don't understand that. Don't ask me to explain that, but that's what I hear. If you want to talk to us from that page, all you have to do is go to the bottom of the page. It says chat, and you click on that. That's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now it has a timestamp, so I can tell when you wrote in your question. So feel free to write in there. It is free. It is anonymous. And I will try to answer as many questions as I can today. And also we have experts. You know that I always like to remind you that we have experts on the show, but I'm not one of them. I'm a mom, and I care deeply, and I have an opinion. Never let it be said that I don't have an opinion. I definitely have an opinion. And I've been covering autism in a semi-journalistic format for more than 10 years now. Plus, I've been an autism mom now for 14 years, somewhere in there, 13, 14 years, and a proud autism mom. So I know that this is not one size fits all, believe me, and I want to help you to get to what you need. We welcome everyone in the autism community here, whether you are a parent, a teacher, a practitioner, or the individual who's on the autism spectrum. Obviously, there is a place for you at this table if you care about people who are on the autism spectrum and want to help them to get to the progress and the support and the resources that they need to be able to do what they want to do. This, you know, it isn't a level playing field, right? We all need different things to be able to do what we want to do. And I have a particular passion for a very particular reason for wanting that for the autism community, because I have a fabulous son who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And he's a remarkable human being. I wouldn't change a thing about him. But we got him help and support so that he could do the things that were important to him. But again, this is not a one-size-fits-all. So please write in with your questions, comments, concerns, gripes, things you want to see on the show, things that you're sick and tired of me saying or doing or having, you know, if there's a guest that you're like, I've seen enough of them, feel free to write in and tell us. We like to hear everything from you always. Okay, we like to start Thursday mornings with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to figure out what in the hey nani are these people talking about? Why are they talking about it? How does this help me? How does this, you know, help me to save time and money and achieve the progress that we so richly deserve and want, right? We give you first the actual definition, which I like to make fun of, and we will be doing that today. And then we give you a working definition, which sometimes is no better, and we can make fun of that as well. But try to give you a for instance so that you can get at least a little bit of an idea, but don't be disheartened if you don't get it the first 12 times you'll get it eventually, because you'll see it and you'll go, oh, that's why that's important. Okay, so today's term, and Traven's already showed it to you, my Carol Merrill's on the wrong side. It is differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. And this you will hear referred to as DRA. And if that's not like migraine making enough, there is another term that's DRO. And what is DRO? It's differential reinforcement of other behavior. Now, why do I bring that up? Just to confuse you? No, because it is confusing. So we will do DRO next week, and then we will compare and contrast. But for today, we're just taking on DRA. Differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. Okay, so let's take a look at our actual definition. And this one is right from the textbook of, definitions and things having to do with ABA. Traven, I'm going to need, there you go. Can you full screen it for me? So, DRA, a procedure for decreasing problem behavior in which reinforcement is delivered for a behavior that serves as a desirable alternative to the behavior targeted for reduction and without following instances of problem behavior. And this comes to us from Cooper, Heron, and Heward, 2007, which is the manual that people have when they're studying this kind of thing. Now, notice that in the term, it was differential reinforcement of alternative behavior. And here's the thing that really tears my ticket is look at how many times in the definition we just rearrange those words. So I'm no closer to really understanding what that is if I don't know what those individual words mean in the sentence. So let's go ahead and move on to our working definition for DRA. It's a type of intervention used to reduce challenging behavior. Okay, that's good to know right right out the gate. A more appropriate behavior is identified. Reinforcement is given when the appropriate behavior is used or observed. And functional communication training, or FCT, is one type of DRA intervention. All right, let's see if we can't break this sucker down, right? So we've got a behavior that's happening that's a challenging behavior, and it's challenging because it's getting in the way of other learning. It's getting in the way of, what we need for the person to be able to do to get to subsequent behaviors that are going to help them achieve their goal. Let's stick with functional communication because it's an easy one, right? Imagine, well, first of all, we know that when kids are born, they don't have language and they cry. And that's how they get their needs met. So I go, wah, 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 and you pick me up and you hold me, right? And if I'm still, wah, 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 then you go, let me check the diaper. Is the diaper wet? I'll change the diaper. If I'm still, wah, 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 you'll check to see, am I warm? Am I okay? Maybe I'm hungry, right? You go through these, but you're trying to figure out what the function of the crying is. Because once you figure out what the function, the baby's trying to get you to do something, and once you figure it out, you do it, and the baby stops crying, right? If the baby is healthy and all is well, right? So this is what the child learns. I cry, I get what I want. And they've even got people who have determined that different cries mean different things, right? So that you can get to the shorthand of it. But at some point, the baby, if they're typically developing, starts to learn that, crying is really inefficient because it takes you a long time to figure out what I want. And they start to see that other people are talking, and they have to do a lot of things with their mouth, but they gradually learn to say things enough to get what they want. But it's frustrating for a while. There's a period of time where it's super duper frustrating, and that's called the terrible twos usually, because it's like, I can't say what I want, and I just want it right now, so I'm just gonna yell and be mad. Now, what happens if you don't get through the terrible twos? What happens if you aren't able to get enough words to get to the point where you can say, I want a cookie now, right? I need a glass of water. I'm tired, I'm hot, I'm cold. What happens if you can't say those things? Then you get to frustration and you start trying all kinds of things to be able to get your needs met. So you may pick up your fabulous thing that you love and throw it at somebody because you need to get their attention, or you need to get something from them, right? So we end up having challenging behavior. And what the challenging behavior does is it attempts to get a need met. And we don't want to reward that. We don't want to say, oh, okay, you threw your wonderful thing at the camera and got my attention, and now I'm going to give you something. We do that as parents. Like, that's something we do because we're like, oh, you need something and I want you to stop throwing something, so I'm going to give you something, right? But all that does is ensures that they're going to pick things up and throw them on a regular basis because that's how I get my needs met. So differential reinforcement of alternative behavior means that instead of reinforcing this challenging behavior, I'm going to pick something that's more appropriate, like teaching you to say, hey, right? Even just hey or excuse me is probably a more appropriate one, right? That if I say, excuse me, I want to make sure, because that's the alternative behavior that I've picked for this, I want to make sure that I reinforce that. So any kind of functional communication, right? I may have a list of things and say, if they push a button on the iPad that says, excuse me, or that says water or whatever, that would be an alternative behavior to throwing something, and I want to make sure that I reinforce that. Now, notice that in the actual definition, it said there has to be an absence of the challenging behavior. Now, this is where it gets really tight here, is that usually in a BIP, a behavior intervention plan, we're very specific. So we say the problem behavior is throwing things, right? And so if I want to do DRA, and I've said that functional communication is the alternative behavior, and I have to teach it, I have to show them this is how you do it, and we have to practice it, and I have to reinforce it. But then when we get to the real life moment, when they want something from me, if they say, hey, and then throw the thing, it has to be absence of the challenging behavior. I'm not just going to always reinforce the behavior. There has to be an absence. So you got to say, hey, or excuse me, and not throw the thing. Does that make sense? Okay. I think where parents get tripped up is that everything starts to slide together for us. The painting gets muddy, if you will. What I love about behaviorists is that they are super specific about it. And they'll say, all we're looking at right now is not throwing things. We're not looking at spitting. We're not taking that on right now. We're taking on throwing, because throwing is what we've identified as being the problem. So, and parents, we just go, oh, it's all one and the same. It's not. So differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, you identify the challenging behavior, you identify what a more functional version of it would be, and then you make sure that you reinforce that. You got to teach it first, right? But then you reinforce it when it happens in the absence of the challenging behavior. Does that make sense? It's something, the alternative behavior has to be something that gets the need met. A lot of times people get confused about that. They go, well, this challenging behavior, I don't want to see it anymore, so we're just going to get rid of that. Well, it's there because it's meeting a need. If you don't find something else that meets that need, all you're doing is postponing it. All you're doing is postponing it. Have you ever seen this in adults where you ask them not to do something and they go, oh, okay, and then you walk away and they're busy doing it because they had a need that needed to be met, and they're going to say whatever they want to you. Talk to teenagers. Teenagers do this a lot. In any case, DRA, you're going to hear people use this term. Next week, we'll take on DRO and we'll compare and contrast between the two of them. It's confusing. Forgive yourself if you don't get it the first 12 times. All right? But moving on, we always have a question of the day. And our question for you today, which you can be answering on Facebook Live, because Facebook is working as we speak, and we're excited about that. Question of the day, there we go. Thank you. What helps you when facing adversity? So here's the thing. We're all going to meet with adversity in our lives. All of us. It doesn't matter whether you're on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. All of us are going to be met with adversity. And I really think that how we choose to deal with adversity is a hallmark of how life is going to go. I watch people and I watch myself, and here's the perfect example. Yesterday when Facebook wasn't working, and we were all having our reactions to it, right? Everybody was and I'm sure that people who were just going about their day and just use Facebook to stay in contact with their friends and family were having feelings about it. But I was watching a lot of people online who use Facebook Live in the way that we do. It's a way to get your content out to people. It's a way that you communicate with people. It's part of your job. And we were all stressing about it. But I think it's important that, you have a map in your life for how you deal with adversity. And if you, and you have a philosophy about adversity that helps you to be able to get through things. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because when you are an autism parent, you are going to deal with adversity. Like, there's a certain amount of it that you just have to go, oh, yeah, no, see, that's going to happen. I will tell you that the first year of autism, I had a problem because I kept being surprised. Every time something would happen, I would go, well, that doesn't seem right. How are we, what? On top of autism, we have to deal with this? Like, eternal surprise. And I would say to you, quite honestly, it wasn't until we got into like year 3 that I thought to myself, oh, that's what this deal is. There is going to be a certain amount of adversity, and I'm not always going to know which corner it's coming from, and I just have to sort of settle into that. I just have to accept that that's what this deal is. And when you accept that and go, oh, right, there's going to be adversity on a regular basis, and it isn't about the adversity, it's about figuring out the solution around, through, under, over, because it's not one size fits all. You don't have to just be like, oh, I know when adversity comes, it's this. No, because it can come from different directions. I love the children's book, We're Going on a Bear Hunt, because it's this very simple board book that you can read to a very small child, and it shows a family, and it says, we're going to go on a bear hunt, and the first thing that happens is they run into adversity, because I think the first thing is that they get to tall grass, and they're like, oh, tall grass, what are we going to do? And it's this whole thing about, are we going to go over it or under it? Or no, we've got to go through it. And so then they have fun, and there's these parts of it where they go swishy, swishy, swishy that you can do with a kid. It's so much fun. Read the book. But so they go through the tall grass, and then they go, sticky mud. We can't go over it, under it. We got to go through it, right? But the truth is, in life, adversity, sometimes you can go around it. There are some times when you go, you know what, that fight is not for me. So I'm going to go around that. I'm going to go a different way. There are some times you can go underneath it. So there are some times you can go over it, right? But a lot of times you do have to go through it. And recognizing that that's just part of it. One of the things that I just found myself saying a lot yesterday, let's just work the problem. Because in the beginning we didn't know it was a Facebook problem. So let's just eliminate, what are the things that most likely could be, why can't we get on Facebook? Let's just work the problem. But when we got to the point where we saw, oh, it's international outage. I don't know about the rest of my team, but I was like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about that. Like, I cannot fix Facebook. We're going to have to let Facebook fix. So what can we do? What can we do today? Well, we can be live on YouTube. Let's just get ourselves live on YouTube. And with my producer, that's what we did. And so much of life is that moment about going, have I worked the problem? There are other people who just go, oh, can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do a live show today. That happens in life. There are people who come to the first thing of adversity and go, oh, I'm out. I can't do it. That always makes me sad, because what did you miss out on? I think the better solution is work the problem, ask the questions, see what's possible. I love to ask questions and see what's happening. If you get to the point where you go, that's not in my hands, then release it to the universe. But the very next question that I encourage you to ask yourself is, so what can I do? If I can't do that, what can I do? I think that's where the gold is. Any time that I will be honest with you, I learned this from autism. I did not learn this in my life, and I have trouble applying it to the rest of my life, but I learned this with autism. And is a powerful, powerful tool. When you say, well, I can't do that, but what can I do and what can I do today? And then you take that action, stuff happens. Stuff gets better. Stuff gets done. It's a place of empowerment. So that's my philosophy. That's how I'm looking at adversity. That's what autism has taught me about adversity. What do you guys do? Write in and tell us, because I don't have the market cornered on this. I'm still a work in progress. Let us know what you guys do, because I would be very interested in that. So that's our question of the day. We also have a topic. So let's take a look at what our topic is. Topic of the week. It is choosing what to focus on, which sometimes is the question, and sometimes is what can I do, and is sometimes on taking the little bit of action that you can. I find myself having conversations a lot with people saying, okay, well, we can't cure world hunger today. We can't. And if we choose to focus on that, we will shut down and be frozen and not be able to do anything. Man, I'm queen of the paralyzed woman, right? When it's too overwhelming. But when we ask ourselves, what can I do today? What action can I take today? What action can I take right now? If there's one thing I could do right now, and if that's the thing we focus on, stuff gets done. Stuff gets done. And so often we look at what isn't available and what's wrong and what isn't working. And that's there. That's available all the time. You can always go there. And that will give you a perspective of your life and of the world that is that negative. I do believe in the yin and the yang, that there's always going to be negative. But along with that, there's always going to be positive. And even if you can just open up your view of the world, and we talk on the show about acceptance commitment therapy, and that's what it does, is open up your view to say, that's true. This negative thing is true, but what else is there around it? Are there positive things happening? Are there super cool things? Are there super cool people? I know when I go out and drive and go to the grocery store, sometimes you have somebody cut you off and then, you honk at them and then they flip you off and you're like, people are terrible. People are horrible, right? And then I can go through the rest of the day with that thought in my mind. People are just terrible. People are rude. People are inconsiderate, right? But all it takes is one thing to show me, and it could be a child in the grocery store who smiles at an elderly woman and picks something that she's dropped up and smiles at her, and that elderly woman says, aren't you a remarkable human being, to that child? And my faith in humanity is restored, and I go, aren't people wonderful? Isn't it and then I start thinking about all the people I've ever met in my life, even just, on a bus, somebody that I met 30 years ago who was just a really wonderful person. And, if that's always there, we make a choice every day. What are you choosing to focus on? Are you choosing to look at the good part of it, or are you choosing to be in the bad part of it? And I don't know about you, but I vacillate. I can be very easily pulled over and go, all people are terrible, right? But I can be fairly easily swayed back to isn't it a wonderful world, and aren't there amazing people? So if it's a choice, and a lot of times it is, unless you're really suffering from mental illness where you need help and support to get back to that place where your brain can see the other half, we all have a choice. So what are you choosing to focus on today? Which one makes your tummy happier? Which one makes for a happy life? Choose what you want to focus on. All right. Having said all of that, we've got a great show for you today. So coming up in just a few minutes, we have the wonderful Yadira Calderon. She's been on the show before. She's an autism advocate and a blogger. Her site is, talk about choosing to look at the happy side. Her website, her blog is Autism Happy Kingdom. That's choosing to look at the positive side of it. Then we have special education attorney Bonnie Yates, who's going to be with us answering some of the questions that you guys have sent in. And you sent in some good questions about IEPs in the last week. And then towards in the second hour, first time on the show, we're really excited. Justin Leaf is going to be here with us, and he is the director of research for the Autism Partnership Foundation. He is also, I don't know if he's the president or what the term is, for something called the SIG, and it is the special interest group that is a part of ABAI. We're going to have him explain what all those letters mean, but I think you're going to find it interesting. And he's got some very, controversial, like we're going to get a little hepped up stuff that he's going to talk about. There's one article in particular that came out. I'm just going to tease this because I know once you hear this, you're going to be like, oh, I need to tune in and see, Shannon's head fly around the room. So there was an article that came out suggesting that ABA causes PTSD. All right, aren't you excited to hear what I have to say about that? So that'll be in the second hour. And Justin's going to talk about what the SIG's response was to this article. And of course, I will chime in with my 65 cents because I have more than 2 cents about that. Won't you want to be here for that? But we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Plus, he's got a conference that's coming up for the Autism Partnership Foundation that's coming. April is around the corner, y'all. We all need to strap in and get ready. So that and ever so much more, we're going to try to find time to get to our meditation moment and mindfulness, and maybe even autism in the classroom. We'll see. All right, stick with us. We're going to be back with Yadira Calderon. Stick with us.
Hey, I'm Candace Cameron Bray.
Tom Bergeron.
You're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
And you're watching Autism Live.
You're watching Autism Live.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
This is Logan Shepard. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepard is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepard now.
All I really want to say is, like, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream, like, that one day, like, I can just, like, inspire people and never give up. Because, like, that's what I want to do in life. Because if I can succeed, they can succeed. And I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the CARD method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-CARD. Rock on, Logan.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are joined, I'm very excited because this is the second time that we've had her on the show, Yadira Calderon, and she says her name better than I do. We were just laughing about that. And she is coming to us. She's a wonderful advocate and writer and just an inspiration, let's say that. But her site is Autism Happy Kingdom. You can go there. It's Autism Happy Kingdom. And wonderful, wonderful site with lots of information. And so Yadira, let's start with, let them hear you say how you say your name, because it sounds so much better when you say it.
Well, thank you, Shannon. How are you, everyone? Big greetings. I am Yadira Calderon.
See how much better she says it? I need to work on that. And you are an amazing mom of an amazing young woman. We've got a picture of you with your daughter right there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about her?
Of course. Her name is Somais Moshopoulos. She's half Greek, half Puerto Rican. And my daughter is on the autism spectrum. We have gone through the plethora of realities of the diagnosis. And from early on, I received a positive message in regards to this new world we were about to discover. And that has led our path, you know. And my daughter, from having lost speech, having lost motor skills, not being able to interact and socialize, having plenty of academic challenges, my daughter now is functioning. My daughter now is happening, and this is the result of addressing health issues, of therapies, and working very hard with the school system, and in a way becoming a very demanding parent based on the variety of situations that we had to face, to make sure they understood that my daughter can learn how to learn, because we were at this stage 2 to 3 years ago, and that has been so powerful for me as a parent to understand I am her voice, and there are many people around us who can help us, and I need to allow that to happen. And here we are. You know, she's going to be turning 11 years old in May, and I have so many questions in regards to puberty, more than anything, her future, Shannon. What are we going to do with her? You know, what can happen? What I, as a parent, need to do to make it happen so my child can either have the supports that she needs in place, or my daughter is going to have those independent skills to be able to make it happen when the time comes that we, her family, parents, immediate loved ones are not around.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things that I love and adore about you and about your site is that you are coming to this from a place of, I'm going to see what's possible, and then we're going to take action. I was just talking about, you know, how do people face adversity and what do they decide to do? And you are the poster child for saying, okay, so we've got this going on. We're going to figure out what we do with that. But I also love the fact that you're willing to ask the questions, and the questions that make us all fearful, instead of avoiding them and saying, okay, she's 11 now, and she is going to grow up to be a wonderful, beautiful young woman. And what do we need to put in place now to be able to help her down the road. I just think it's a very positive message. And again, we want to tell people autismhappykingdom.com. You can go there and read Yadira's blog and be filled with inspiration, but also be a part of her discovery on this journey of finding what is possible and what works and is wonderful. So a really great message. So I want to start with some of the talking points that you sent us, that talking about mentorship programs, and that there's a specific mentorship program that you are saying that you think has some teeth and legs to it, coming out of Chicago. The SEED project, CEED project.org. Tell us a little bit about what you think is so amazing about this program.
No doubt about it. Yes, as you just restated, my daughter is 11 years old. I cannot wait for 16, 17, 18 years old to work with the school system and plan a transition. So right now, I have my list of what works and what does not with my daughter, and what she likes and what she has challenges with. So art at this point in life, it is opening the doors to share emotions, to express herself, to create her persona, and for her to realize, I am an individual, I am mighty, I have all of these strengths, let art also speak for me. So we have this incredible experience where, again, I told myself, she has created these beautiful pieces of art. What can I do with this? And it so happens that here in Tennessee, where we just moved to, this incredible woman, Victoria Franklin, was hosting an art over. And I sent her a note. I sent her a lot of the material that I have put together for my daughter. I let her know she is on the autism spectrum, and this is what we would like to experience. I would like for her to have the experience to be a vendor in the art crawl. And she said yes. And the doors were opened. And here we have an organization, without knowing so, practicing inclusion and allowing my daughter to share her voice, to have her table, to show her art, and to be herself above all. So as I am going through the process of preparing for the art crawl in October, I begin thinking, here we go. Entrepreneurship plus inclusion equals good business. And I have seen some incredible examples in Florida where we were living, where parents, once again, taking control, finding opportunity, and creating a future for their children, or all having to do with the ideas of building a business around the strengths, even including the challenges of their child. So we had this experience. It was incredible. It was empowering. Again, one of the organizations that we found in Chicago, a part of University of Illinois Chicago, is the CEED.org, which is a mentorship program for individuals with disabilities to create their own business, to become an entrepreneur. So here we have, again, a university, individuals with a vision, parents involved, working with individuals with disabilities, and providing a set of meaningful tools to move them forward. So as I keep reading, I keep finding more incredible resources. And as I am looking throughout the state of Tennessee, what is happening here, I still have not found that mentorship program that I believe is a key element. Why? Because we're starting from scratch. My background is so diverse. My experiences in the business world were more of like the backdoor person being support, but not taking that leadership role that is needed in order to be able to move forward your own company, your own enterprise, your own operation. So I think that's one of the key elements at this moment that is needed for any parent considering opening the doors of entrepreneurship, of opportunity for their child, teen, or adult to be, and that is to make sure that they reach out to local universities, that reach out to those local business organizations in their communities. Share your story. Let them know what you're all about. And that's the stage that we are in right now.
Well, and this is also fascinating, but I got to tell you that I can give you another resource that I think is going to make you really happy. I don't know if you've ever heard of, it's a place called Picasso Einstein. And I'm just looking up to see, while you were talking, I was like, oh, I don't know what city that they're based out of. But Picasso Einstein, a couple of years ago, started an entrepreneurship mentorship class to be able to teach people on the autism spectrum to be able to be their own entrepreneurs. And they have it as a whole course that they can share with you. And potentially they have been looking to, I think they're based out of Florida, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm sure that they would be interested if you called them in having a satellite, be able to have a program like that in Tennessee, and maybe even training you to be able to do that. I can't speak for them, but Picasso Einstein, I'll make sure that we hook you up with them.
Thank you.
And there are more and more people who are seeing that entrepreneurship is a real path to successful employment, if you will, for individuals who are on the autism spectrum. Because when you are your own boss, you can modify things so that you are able to work at your highest proficiency without having to deal with other people's preconceptions of what a person should and shouldn't do.
Thank you.
So that's a wonderful thing. Okay, I love that you are looking for that long-term, short and long-term plan for your daughter, for everything that she has. And we just did a show the other day talking about, with Bonnie Yates, talking about how important it is for people in their IEPs to be talking about the ITP, the Individual Transition Plan. And I just want to remind everybody that there are 3 aspects to the ITP that are supposed to be addressed by your child's school. Now, in some states, this process starts at 14, but in all states, the plan has to be in place by the time someone is 16 years old. But the 3 things that the ITP has to address is where your child will live when they are when you are no longer there and they are out of school, what all their supports will be around them, who are the people in their community who will help them both now and long term, and the third one is how they will be a part of the workforce and how they will manage money around that. But it's career and financial circumstances so that they have a way to access the things that we all need to access on a regular basis.
Thank you.
So I loving this whole talk. But one of the things that I really want to talk about here on your list, Yadira, is that you say we are in infancy mode. Talk to us a little bit about what you mean by that.
Can you repeat that again?
So you say on this on the talking points that you gave to me, you say we are in infancy mode. We are discovering opportunity and countless sources of information. Talk a little bit about why you feel that way, because I think most of us look at you and go, look at how much you know. Why do you feel like you're in the infancy mode?
We are in the infancy mode because at this stage, like one of the points I brought up on my list is not having that financial base that will allow me to secure certain legal elements that are very important in these steps. We are in infancy mode because I still have, and I make phone calls and I send emails, and I use social media, and I still have not been able to gather that list of resources. For example, either a printer or a print shop, some of these resources that are needed in order to accomplish what at this moment I see as a series of possibilities with my daughter's art. So that's what I state, when we are in infancy mode, and that's why I bring up the fact again of the mentorship. Yeah. And that's why I believe the links to universities are so important, because you have in universities a lot of individuals who were business owners and led all of these incredible corporations. They're now professors. You have students to be who have a lot to learn, and they need to be exposed to the needs of a segment that will also become their customers. But on the other hand, here we have someone like me, who's reminding So that's why I say that we are in infancy mode, because there are elements that I believe are extremely important, and I still have not been able to grasp, or have full access to them in order to follow up with the next steps,
Well, I just feel like your message is so important. We want to encourage people to go to autismhappykingdom.com to read your blog, to be on this journey with you. You've got some amazing blogs on there about the power of entrepreneurship, and detailing the first art crawl that you guys were a part of. I just feel obligated to throw some resources back at you and say to you that I don't know if you've had the opportunity to talk to the ladies at the Art of Autism, but they might be a great resource for you, because they're parents and a group of people who have been helping their children to get art shows and to be a part of some really important things, to get stamps made that are UN stamps, the United Nations. So they know the art world, so they might be of use to you. Have you already talked to them at the Art of Autism?
I have spoken with them, not in details in regards to this new step of entrepreneurship.
Good.
So thank you very much for highlighting them. And Deborah Muslikar, the wonderful leader of the organization, I'll be sending her a note and let her know that you reminded me I must speak with them about this.
Absolutely. We just think that you're amazing, and that your beautiful girl is amazing. And we're going to keep watching, because I know you are going to figure this out, that there is no stopping you, that you are going to do everything that you can help for your young woman, and that's going to, that journey is both inspiring and informative for people. So we want to encourage everybody to go to autismhappykingdom.com and check out the amazing blogs to see all the things that Yadira finds and learns on this journey. But please hug your beautiful girl for us.
I shall. And again, thank you for the opportunity. The work that you do is so important. Keep us, families, parents, those individuals that are working with our children, teens, and adults, keep moving them forward, because that's what we must do. They can have a future, and it depends on us, the parents, to make it happen.
That's
so
right.
Thank you again.
Thank you. We hold hands. Si se puede, right?
Siempre.
Yes.
Siempre, always.
All right. Thank you, my friend. We will talk to you soon.
We will. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A remarkable mom, always inspires me, and just her capacity to move through adversity, exactly what we're talking about today. So we're going to take a short break, and then we are going to come back with the fabulous Bonnie Yates, and you guys sent in a bunch of questions. You're keeping Bonnie busy. Stick with us. Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself sometimes, why does my child have meltdowns? Well, the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, they're a part of typical development, but meltdowns are when things get a little bit more out of control, when even the child isn't sure what's entirely wrong. Generally with a meltdown, there's an environmental component. There's something else going on outside the child that's making the tantrum worse. It's really important that we start to be detectives and take notes and look around at the environment and start to figure out what are the things that happen every time your child has a meltdown. And lastly, it's important to get help. You really can't face these kinds of things effectively completely on your own. Tantrums, they're a part of typical development, but don't accept meltdowns as something that just happens. Make sure you get help and support. You might be asking yourself if your child has autism.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out, find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing, you might need to access new levels of service, but I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that as they grow do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better and you're going to see amazing progress.
Cool email.
Welcome back. Wait, Bonnie, we're live. I missed that we were coming back live. And I'm sorry, Bonnie and I were in a private conversation. Sorry about that.
Which is probably way interesting. So you'll just have to guess as to what we were talking about.
That's right. But in any case, we are back live, and I've got Bonnie Yates on the phone, which is always a very exciting thing for me. And now we've got her on Skype on the thing as well. So sorry about that, Bonnie, but thrilled that you're here.
There's no problem. There's no problem. We could tell all the listeners that unlike all other moms in the world, we worry about things like if our kids love us enough, and then we tell ourselves that we're really not being very emotionally grown up, and then life goes on. Anyway, that's what we were talking about.
And I was saying to Bonnie that I'm remembering that it was exactly a year ago that I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, parked and talking to Bonnie because Bonnie was talking me off a ledge, mom to mom. It wasn't even a legal thing, but Bonnie was giving me her time and telling me that, it's okay when our kids are independent. So, and because you're a good friend, you're a great mom, and to all of your kids, and you are a great friend and a great friend of the community, and you're one of those open, loving arms in the world, Bonnie. So, and having said that, for people who haven't watched the show, Bonnie is also an amazing special education attorney. She is joining us courtesy of Hirji & Chow, and they are an amazing law firm. Tell us a little bit about Hirji & Chow, Bonnie.
Okay, so philosophically, Shannon, since you opened the door, I just want to say I believe we're one family on this planet, and we're in this together. And we all love our kids, and we understand how everybody else loves their children, and we all want the best for our children, and so anyway, Hirji & Chow is a special education law firm. We're located in Culver City. We do disability discrimination, special education, higher education, regional center stuff, and so on. So it's basically most facets of education law, and it's a big area, and it's exciting because it's big, and you can never know enough. And so I love Autism Live because it's constantly teaching me to learn about things that I need to know more about. So we're all learning together.
I love that. I love being a student in the universe. And then we always ask you to do a disclaimer for us about the things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, the disclaimer is that we are teaching you about your rights under state and federal law. We're not giving you legal advice about your specific case, because if you're anywhere other than Southern California, we can't do that. But if you are in Southern California, we can do that, and we talk to people all the time. We intake them. We don't charge them for that. So if you're in Southern California and you're interested in that, we'll give you the phone number at the end of the program. Today, what we're supposed to be doing is answering a lot of questions that people had about IEPs. And I got to tell you, when I read these questions, I just felt like my heart broke a little bit because I've been going to IEPs and just feeling like this is a really hard business, it's really difficult day after day to try to, keep a straight face when people say it's not that we are doing this for cost reasons, we just don't think the student needs it. A mediator said to me, I hope I didn't say this last week, he said, I probably did say this, he said, you're going to come in and talk about all the students' needs, and the district's going to come in and talk about how great the student's doing,
Right.
and so on.
And there is one question in particular that broke my heart when it came in.
Yes, yes. The last one, right?
I think the second to last one. But let's start at the beginning. And so, but anyway, did we get to the disclaimer part? Did I miss that? Did you say that it's...
We did. We disclaimed enough.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing is, whenever we get done with this, if we get done, we're going to start talking about least restrictive environment, because I think that really has a lot of significance for people with kids that do need to be in a general ed setting and exposed to typical care.
Absolutely.
So that's coming.
Okay,
so first we're going to talk about IEPs.
Okay, so first question, I just got my notice for IEP, and I always hear people talk about bringing a tape recorder like it's some magic bullet. Why do I need to bring a tape recorder? What does it actually help with? I feel like I'm missing something.
Okay, great question. And the answer is, well, first of all, people are apprehensive about telling the district that they're going to record, and in California the law is that you have to give 24 hours written notice. People sometimes say, is an email okay? And I'm here to tell you that an email is absolutely a written form of communication that is appropriate to use with the district for almost all communications. Parents say, well, I don't want to go in there and start by being really adversarial, and recording the meeting is an indicator that I am being adversarial. Other parents say, I'd rather go in without my recorder and see how they really behave, rather than having them conform and sort of lawyer up because they know they're being recorded. I respect all of those sentiments, and when I was a new special ed lawyer, I decided on a case-by-case basis whether I was going to record my IEPs. It didn't take too long for me to realize that you have to record all the time, because you're not going to need it most of the time, but when you need it some of the time, you really, really need it. So let me give you an example. I had an IEP in December where we were contesting the district's, we were contesting a number of things the district did, an informal dispute resolution agreement, and an assessment that made the student ineligible. Our evaluator came in and explained to the head of behavior support services how the district test results were wrong, and they skewed the results improperly in favor of a determination of ineligibility. And that special ed person sat in his chair and basically said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, he could not contain himself. If I'd had a video of him, he was like a melting candle, okay? And then he basically made a lot of admissions, and they had legal significance with regard to the district's informal dispute resolution agreement. If I had not had that particular meeting recorded, I would not have that proof now, and I'm going to need it when I go to due process. So there are rules that you can only prove are broken if you have a recording. So I had a meeting where they came in, the student was transitioning from 5th grade to middle school, and they all came to the table and they sat down, and the first thing that they said is, we're offering blah, blah, blah middle school. There was no discussion about present levels of performance, progress on past goals. And then I went around and I polled them, and I said, how many of you has ever met the student? 0. How many of you has, or maybe there's 1. How many of you has ever visited this middle school? None. Do you know why it was chosen? No. Did the people downtown tell you to offer it? Yes. And when I got the IEP, of course, it didn't read that way, but that was a predetermination kind of a problem, because they picked a placement, they didn't know anything about it, and they were just hoping to ram it through in the meeting. And those are two, I think, strong examples. It's a preventative measure. You don't know if you're going to need it or not. And I just think you can't know, so you have to do it.
Yeah. Can I say that I agree? And I had a parent recently who's been around the block a million times and has been to several IEPs say to me, you know, I made the decision not to bring my tape recorder into this IEP for this very specific reason. And she said, and I know that that's going to set you off, Shannon, because you say always bring the tape recorder. And I said, no. You know, if you are at the point where you know all the things that can happen and you consciously make the decision and you know what you're giving up, then I have nothing to say to you, because that's you understanding. But especially for parents that are, I would say, in the first 5 years of this, like, I can't even imagine walking into an IEP without a tape recorder. I know for us that having the tape recorder made the difference of what my son got, because we caught them in mistakes. And they were little mistakes, but they were big enough that we didn't end up having to go to due process. We didn't end up having to have the heartache of fighting on and on and on. But mistakes were made, and my son got what he actually needed and was appropriate because of that, and it ended the argument. So I can't even imagine. And when parents write to me and tell me some of the things that get said at an IEP meeting, I mean, I literally have an allergic reaction, inappropriate things that get said. And my first response is, oh my gosh, did you get that on a tape recorder? To which they always say, no, I didn't bring the tape recorder. And then I go, oh, and you know, it's twofold, because I honestly believe that most of those things would not get said if there was a tape recorder, because I think everyone's on their best behavior when there's a tape recorder, which means that more productive things get done, and it doesn't break down into these shouting matches that I hear about that are started on the school side. Because when the tape recorder is there, people behave themselves. But when that isn't true, the sometime chance that isn't true, you'd want to have that tape recorded, because that's going to help you to ensure that your child gets what's appropriate and that you don't have to mess around much longer. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Bonnie. And for this parent who's like, I feel like I'm missing something, for me, the missing something is that it gave me the opportunity to hold the school up to what legally my child was responsible for, and I had proof that their intention was not to do that, and it was game over. Game over.
Yeah. A couple other reasons occur to me. One is, as with doctor's appointments, sometimes so much is said that you know, people say go with somebody else or record the doctor's appointment, because you're going to have to evaluate it. You're going to need to evaluate it afterward. I think an IEP is exactly like that. Also, clients come to me and they ask for a case evaluation, and they'll tell me something happened at the meeting, and I will say, did you record it? So I'm constantly confronted with things that I believe happened and I can't prove.
Yeah.
So those are the other reasons. The final thing is, and this is just like a moment of levity, you know, because we need that sometimes. You know, it's getting so weird in special ed that, like, I'm really thinking we need to blow the whole thing wide open, and we need to have like a special ed reality show. And so, you know, maybe it's going to start with some of these recordings. I don't know. But, I mean, just the kind of stuff that happens.
Bonnie, you still have not seen my one-woman show. There is a segment in it that is at the IEP, and I play everybody in the IEP. It's right what you're talking about.
Oh my God! Once again, Shannon Penrod steals my thunder. I mean, I'm moving in a really, you know, A crowd. You know, you can see that. Anyway, what's the next question, Jen?
Okay, our next question. We had our IEP, and I hadn't watched your show. I signed it because I thought I had to. I didn't agree, but I didn't realize I could say that. I went home and felt sick about the whole thing. I started Googling and found Bonnie on your show. Now I'm really sick because I think I messed up. What do I do now? My son is 5, just diagnosed, and is finishing TK, transitional kindergarten. Their placement for him is a special day class for 1st grade. I think he would be better off repeating kindergarten in a regular classroom with an aide.
Okay. You've got to get on the horn really fast and request another IEP meeting. You can write them a letter and say you were pressured to consent, you didn't understand your legal rights, which included that you got a reasonable time period to consider the offer, but you got to get another meeting in before the end of the school year. And you got to go in and, you know, we aren't going to answer the question of how you would do that IEP strategically. That's a different question. But I think you've got to renounce your consent and say that it was under duress and it wasn't really informed consent. Informed consent is a big thing in IDEA, and that you need another meeting.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving on to the question that made me want to cry. We just had our IEP and I want to cry. Why do they have to make it so hard? I just want what is best for my child. Is there something wrong with that? My daughter is in 2nd grade and has been through a lot. She is a twin, but her brother was born with some pretty intense medical issues. He recently passed away. I am doing my best to keep myself and my family together and take care of my daughter who has ASD and is struggling to understand why her brother is no longer here. And on top of all this, I have to deal with these petty, ridiculous school administrators who want to argue that she doesn't need speech twice a week. Really? Is there something I can say to these people to get them to be more human?
The answer to that is maybe, but it would depend on how much she likes kind of direct confrontation. I happen to like calling things as they actually are and sort of busting through, you know, the obfuscation. So on one hand, you could sit down with them at an IEP meeting and you could say, I'm not doing this because I want anybody to feel sorry for me, but I do need you all to think about what this child has gone through. The kinds of feedback I'm getting from multiple administrators make me feel that you haven't really thought it through, and describe everything that's happened to her daughter. Now, in terms of the speech services and the fact that they won't agree to speech services 2 times a week, which is not a very expensive plan, okay? Sometimes people cause unintended consequences. Sometimes when you refuse to do the small thing that you should do, you end up with a bigger thing that you wouldn't have had to do. She needs to look at her speech and language evaluation, assuming it's recent, and her psychoeducational evaluation, assuming it's recent, and she needs to ask the district for independent educational evaluations in the area of psychoed and speech. And she needs to get an independent person to come in and look at her daughter's needs, which would include the social, emotional, and also the speech. And my guess is that approach might work. When people are being overly bureaucratic, and this is part of the reason that I'm sort of trying to think about like humor and doing my copycat Shannon Penrod, you know, reality show, I'm really, really distressed by how many people seem burned out and unfeeling. And I think ultimately the problem we have is that people, all of us, can become burned out and unfeeling as a defense mechanism against too much work in a situation where one feels that you're dog paddling forever and you're never going to catch up. And I think that is the reality that a lot of people feel who are administrators, you know, or other professionals working within a school district, because the numbers are just staggering. So, you know, we need to figure out if there's a way we can bring them back to their basic humanity or not. And if not, you know, like if folks are burned out and they just can't do it anymore, it's really their responsibility to keep their side of the street clean. And you shouldn't be working for children if you can hear about what happened to this young twin and just feel like, okay, next case. So I think you really got to go in and make them make eye contact with you and you talk to them about what happened. This isn't a garden variety, run-of-the-mill, hey, I need lunch bunch kind of a situation. I mean, this young lady may need some counseling support as well. It sounds like mom is doing her level best to manage everything.
Yeah.
Support her, collaborate with her. Don't make it worse. It's just going to cost you more money.
And I think, Bonnie, am I wrong in saying that this is an ideal case in which to have an advocate or
Yes.
somebody go with?
Yes, and yes.
You know, because
you need support.
Yeah,
You need support.
You know, you are doing your best here, and sometimes, you know, it's that old saying about you can't fight a land war in Asia. You know, you've got things going on at home, and you shouldn't have to have this argument with the school, but since the school has raised it, I think bringing somebody in to fight for you and to say some of this for you, and even to potentially have, you know I'm not somebody who's trained to go into IEPs, but I have gone into IEPs as a friend to someone who had been through some stuff, and I was able to go in and say, to be a dispassionate person, to say, this is not appropriate. This is not an appropriate way in which to address this. This is not, you know, just as a friend, because you're allowed to bring other people into your IEPs. But for this person, I would recommend a trained advocate. Wouldn't you?
We got to take some of the load off this person's shoulders. You know.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
And there is a trend in California, which is a good trend, which is that people are beginning to say what happens at home and how the student behaves at home is relevant to her overall educational performance and the impact of the disability on her. And so we're moving into an era where more and more, I think, home behaviors are going to have to be considered as relevant in coming to an understanding of the unique needs of the student.
Well, and you know, for me, I'm glad that people are finally starting to get on that, because that's a big fat duh.
Yep.
As a former school teacher, I mean, you know, you could see when something was happening at home. If mom and dad were separated and going through a divorce, that, you know, that child would stumble, and somebody needed to be there to pick them up and hang on to them so that they didn't fall.
Yeah.
And, you know, so losing your brother, yeah, no, absolutely. All right.
Very, very traumatic.
Well, sending a big hug to that mom. Moving on to our last question. What can I do when the school says he does not need an IEP? We have the regional center and a diagnosis. School says he does not need an IEP, and I think this is wrong.
Okay. I'm assuming that he has a diagnosis of autism, and the district's position is that the autism has no educational impact. We are seeing this more and more frequently. Educational impact does not only look at academics. It also looks at social, emotional, adaptive, and so on. And so I am going to assume that this student has behavioral deficits which are not interruptive, but will ultimately interfere with him being able to pass a job interview. And I am going to take the position, without knowing too many facts, that that student needs special education and related services for those reasons. If the student has no IEP at all, you have a dispute about eligibility. The way that you have to work out the eligibility dispute is you have to look at the district's initial evaluation that they did, assuming that they did, because they should have, and why that assessment concluded that there was no educational impact. From there, you're in the position to get an outside evaluation at district expense, and if you take the case to somebody that understands autism, your kid's going to end up eligible. I have had several cases this year where students who have been eligible under autism were made ineligible. It's as if districts let people get a little better, and then they try to sort of cull them. It's not going to work.
Yeah, but again, a case where you're going to need some help and support.
Yes, you're going to need to go to due process, probably. I mean, sometimes when we get the outside educational evaluation, we go to the IEP meeting and we can convince them. Sometimes we go to the IEP meeting with our outside educational evaluation and we can't convince them. And when we can't convince them, then we have no choice but to file for due process.
There we go. Well, Bonnie,
you know, I think the district's going to back down at some point. I think they're just trying to see how much stamina a parent has for the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's unfortunate too. That makes me a little heated, but you know, we started this show with talking about what do you do when faced with adversity, and sometimes it's just super important to stand up to it and work the problem and keep trudging. And sometimes with schools that makes the difference, because I do think that sometimes they say, well, let's take this portion of them and say that they're not eligible and see who squawks. And the people who squawk, then they go, okay. And the people who don't, then they go, well, we don't have to provide services. And you don't want to be that parent that didn't squawk and your kid lost out. So, as always, Bonnie, you are amazing. These questions were amazing. We have to say thank you.
Yeah, great questions.
Yes, and we are not live next Thursday, but we will be back with you the Thursday afterwards, so people can be sending in questions and we'll be hanging on to them. Before we let you go, will you please tell us again how we can get a hold of you at Hirji and Chow?
Of course, but only if first you let me say that when we reconvene, we will talk about least restrictive environment, which has all kinds of implications, not only for students that are in general ed and have questions, parents have questions about their rights, but also about students in special ed and how they can be mainstreamed. So, you know, IEP questions and IEP season, very appropriate. And then if, you know, we will get time, we will start talking about LRE, because I know you've had questions about that. Hirji and Chow is at www.lawyer4children.com. And there's our phone number, 310-391-0330. And we'd love to hear from you. Let's keep our chins up.
Yes.
We're in this together. We're stronger together. Let's keep our chins up and keep going.
And isn't it nice to know that somebody like Bonnie is on your team, which is a fabulous thing. I relish that, always.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Have a great week, and I'm going to see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Bye-bye, Bonnie.
Bye.
All right, and so that was very informative. We're going to take a short break, and then when we come back for the first time on the show, we're very excited. Justin Leaf is going to be here with us. He's going to be talking about a conference that's coming up for the Autism Partnership Foundation, plus a lot more. And as I promised, he's going to talk a little bit about this article that came out claiming that ABA causes PTSD. You're going to want to hear what he has to say about that. And of course, I'm sure you will enjoy what I have to say about that as well. Stay tuned for my head to fly around the room. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
I was thinking that we might be moving somewhere so that people could assist us either in the house or us going to see our daughter, because she was shutting down to a point that she wouldn't even recognize you being there by putting your hand in her face and yelling her name.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys and that was about it. With 8 volunteers, including my husband and I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks.
Look, who's that?
And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial-based? Well, what Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where the Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine that it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child.
She is developing roundly. She is socializing. She's playing with her peers. She's learning from her peers. It's very joyous.
Maddie, can you tell me what you see outside? No. Snow?
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself, why does my child stim? Well, first of all, let's talk about what stimming is. Stimming is a slang term for self-stimulatory behavior, which is kind of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of the times when our children engage in these kinds of behaviors, they're not to stimulate themselves. Sometimes they're to soothe themselves. So first of all, we want to get rid of the notion that it's to stimulate themselves. But they do these behaviors because there's something about it that feels good. And that's the main thing that we need to know as parents. It's not some random behavior. There's something about it that's giving the child a paycheck. And once we get an idea of what that might be, we need to find a behavior that can take that behavior's place and start to reinforce that. We want to pick something that's more socially acceptable. So if, for instance, the child is doing a lot of hand flapping because they like seeing their blurred fingers, then we can find something else for them to focus on, maybe a toy that does blurred colors, so for a period of time they'll focus on that. The main thing to remember, though, is that there is a reason for these behaviors. There's something about it that feels good to the child. And once we know that, we can begin to change it. There's a phrase that's being used in the autism community called stimming.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with your Talk of Facts, the autism journey questions and answers that you need to help your child make the progress they need. I'm here to talk to you about one really important item. A lot of people ask me the question, well, Lisa, I want to see this specialist in another state. How do I do that? You know, I don't own a jet. I don't have the ability to fly without great pain and travel. Not a problem. We know how to get this done. So I actually encourage families, even though in travel can be a tremendous hardship getting a child with autism through security, through the plane, and in the journey to where they need to go. We have a whole white paper on TACA about how to travel with special needs kids. So it can be done. So travel, we know that can be expensive. Not everyone has an unlimited supply of cash for air flights. We love and work with this group called miracleflights.org. They're fantastic. They will fly you and your child, so one parent, one adult, anywhere in the United States, one time a year. Also in the TACA document are places to stay. So often you will have people in your life that love and support your family and don't know exactly how to help. ask them to gift you their travel or their rewards cards or coupons for hotel, rental car. That's a great way to be able to get maybe a hotel room that has a refrigerator or a microwave and that's close to a Whole Foods, so you don't have that added cost of going out to dinner, especially if your kid has a lot of allergies. It's important to note that there's not a pediatrician or a specialist by every Starbucks in the United States. Close does not always equal best. So I bring up the travel point so you know that travel is possible, number one, and often it's really going to help you get down the road faster for your kid and getting the answers you need from the specialist that knows what to do. So don't be afraid to travel.
To Autism Live. I am very honored because in the studio live right now we have Justin Leaf, and you are, I want to get it right, the Director of Research for the Autism Partnership Foundation. Tell us a little bit about what the Autism Partnership Foundation is.
Yeah, so the Autism Partnership Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that came about around 2010, really with the mission to improve quality behavior intervention for individuals with autism and their family. And so we do that in three ways. The first way is we have a research team. So it's myself, Joe Sheehan, Julia Ferguson, and Christine Milne, who are just excellent researchers. And we do a variety of studies each year, probably about 15 studies a year, trying to just prove quality intervention makes a difference. The second way is we have a fellowship program where we bring in post-undergraduates, post-master's degree students, postdocs in to get a 2-year training on how to implement quality intervention. And then after 2 years, we send them to different companies or universities to spread the word of quality intervention. And then the third way is with the conference that we put on, where we bring top speakers in for a single track, one-day conference. They get to speak whatever they want to speak about, and they just get to talk good ABA and talk about autism or talk about their experiences.
And we're huge fans of good quality ABA here on the show, so this is all very exciting to me. The conference is coming up in just a couple of weeks. Tell us when and where and how people can go.
Yeah, it's coming up on April 5th. It's a Friday conference. It's in Los Alamitos, California, so a little ways from here, about an hour away. It's, you can go to www.autismpartnershipfoundation.org, or you can look at it on Eventbrite and really see information about the conference. We have fantastic speakers this year. So it's a one-day from like 8:30 to 4:30, I believe, conference. We have Greg Hanley coming out from Massachusetts talking about functional assessment. We have Kathy Lord from UCLA talking about social-emotional issues. We have Missy Olive, who's going to talk about special education and the law. We have Dara, who's the CEO of Uber, coming out from a parent's perspective and a business perspective. We have Denny Reed also speaking, talking about supervision. And then finally, we have Tom Zane coming out and talking about ethical practice and making sure that we're ethical when we provide intervention. So it should be a really fun day.
Yeah, a full day. And tell us a little bit about, is there a cost to come to the conference?
Yeah, there's, I believe it's $225 cost. We just did a student cost for those who are students, $175 cost, which includes the conference registration, which includes lunch, and includes all the CEUs if you're needing CEUs, whether it's for BACB or for ASHA or for APA or if you're an MFT, we have those included.
Those were a lot of letters.
Yeah, I know you don't like jargon. So ultimately, if you're a behavior analyst, if you're a psychologist, if you're a speech-language pathologist, or if you're a marriage family therapy counselor, then you can come and get credit for that.
But parents can come as well, right?
Yeah. So when we talk to the speakers, we say that think of it as both a professional and parent conference. So unlike the jargon I just used, they should not be using much jargon out there. They do gear towards parents. We have school district personnel coming. We have teachers. We have paraprofessionals coming. It's really to capture anyone that's interested in autism or behavior intervention should hopefully be coming to this conference.
Super wonderful. And so what website do they go to? They can go to Eventbrite, but where else can they go?
www.autismpartnershipfoundation.org or www.autismpartnership.com are the two websites that it's there, or Eventbrite.
And so I'm going to throw this out there I didn't know about this before, but now that I do, for those of you who haven't already made plans for that weekend, the ideal thing, if you're going to go to this conference on Friday, you will get your head filled with wonderful things. You'll have an opportunity to be there, not only to see those amazing speakers, but to be there with that audience who are all people who want to get good quality ABA to the right people, you will leave with your batteries charged, and then you'll already be in the area, so the next day stay over and go to the Autism Mardi Gras, which will just be fun.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
Right?
Perfect combination.
Perfect combination that you can do those things. You'll learn a bunch and also have the fun that comes with all that. I think that's the perfect way to spend that weekend.
And I think the other great thing about the conference is we do an hour lunch where the presenters are just there eating with everyone. So anyone can come up and talk to the presenters.
Wonderful.
So it has this real personal feel that you can just come up and be part of the community, and as you say, get your batteries charged.
Wonderful. Now, I met you at ABAI, that was the autism conference that was in San Francisco in January. And you were there speaking about something called the SIG.
Yeah.
So explain to our viewers what the SIG is. You might even have to explain what ABAI is.
Yeah, no worries. First of all, I was glad I came before you because I don't know how anyone could present after you. You were just amazing.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were amazing. So.
Yeah. So ABAI is our international organization for behavior analysts, and so they throw on conferences. They throw a main conference in May where anyone interested in the field of behavior analysis comes in and presents on their research or their clinical practice, and then they have sub-conferences. So the one that you and I met was an autism conference. So it's professionals and parents who come and who are interested in the field of behavior analysis as it relates to autism.
Yes.
And so within this organization, they have what's SIG, or special interest groups. So they have a special interest group on gambling for those professionals interested in gambling, or a special interest group on practice for those implementing practice or implementing behavior intervention clinically. And then what I'm a part of is the autism special interest group, which is those professionals who are interested in behavior intervention as it relates to autism research and treatment.
So a pretty important group if you're a parent with a child that's being treated using, and we hope that all parents with children on the spectrum are getting good ABA. This would be an important group for us to know about.
Yeah, the goal of the group is to really, right now, is to help parents and professionals about, once again, quality intervention and how to navigate the tricky waters of school, or finding good service providers, or finding good organizations. So the whole mission is to really just help spread that word and help consumers as best we can.
Love it. But there were a couple of things. You had to take care of some business at the conference, but there were a couple of things that you talked about, and one in particular that I came running up to you afterwards, and I was like, we need to talk about this because this tears my ticket. There was an article that came out. I'm going to let you talk about it. What did the article say, and why do we all need to be concerned about it?
Yeah, so this it was a conference right before the year I met you. We did the same kind of presentation where we were talking about the special interest group. And I was very happy because we got people pretty excited about the special interest group. And after the plane from Miami to LA, I got off and I got this email about this article, which was designed to show that individuals with autism, if they receive behavior intervention, then they later in life would have signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so this author, what she did was she gave a survey to people who said they had autism. Now, there was no verification if they had autism or didn't have autism. The survey was all online, and you could either have autism or be self-diagnosed with autism. And then they had kind of questions, some which I thought were misleading questions, like, did you feel more stressed after you got ABA? Which is kind of a misleading question.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's what would happen in the court of law.
Right.
And what it showed was upwards of 40% of the participants showed signs of PTSD, and they attributed that to behavior intervention.
Right.
And that was concerning to me. I mean, it's concerning on two fronts. One, I think that individuals with autism and their parents should have a voice. And if they have concerns, we need to know that. Yeah. And if it does, in fact, that behavior intervention leads to some stress or PTSD or anxiety, we need to know that as a community.
Yeah.
But the other part was the design was really poorly done, poorly executed. And my main job is a researcher, and so when I see these designs poorly done, I kind of get annoyed and frustrated with it. And the fact that this article, at the time I got it, was spread out to 10,000 downloads, which is just more downloads than any article I've ever published, and probably in combination ever published. I was concerned. I was getting calls from different states and different professionals saying they're using this article to stop funding behavior intervention. So that was the article in a quick nutshell.
Yeah. But you had some things to say about it, and you called into question the validity of a lot of the different, the basis of it all. You just put out a thing saying, if you feel that you might have autism, then you can answer these questions. Yeah. And the way the questions were asked. I had an allergic reaction to it as a parent. Yeah. I had a similar allergic reaction last week because there was an article that came out of the Washington Post written by a person who's on the autism spectrum who said, it's very hurtful when people quote this, mythical statistic that parents of children on the spectrum are more likely to be divorced. And they were talking about what it felt like for them. And I, like you, I have a son who is about to be 16 and diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And if you ask me what the single most important thing in my life is, I would tell you it's my kid and making sure that he gets everything that he needs and that he is safe. Yeah. And part of all that is him having a voice. Yeah. There was a time when my son did not have a voice. See, I'm going to get emotional. There was a time when my son did not have a voice, and I had to be his voice by proxy, and I took that as seriously as a heart attack. But I am no longer my son's voice. He is his own voice, and he gets to say whatever he wants to say. So defending the rights of people who are on the autism spectrum to say whatever they have to say, powerful, strong in me, right? So it's not that I want people to not say, and this person was saying it makes me feel this way. And I thought, boy, we have to address that. Yeah. Because first and foremost, that's important. But if the underlying thing that's making them feel that way isn't actually what makes them feel that way, then we have a problem, and it's a communication problem. Right. I was saying that, I do think divorce is rampant, right? Yeah. And I do think the other part of the article talked about the article that compares an autism parent's stress to somebody being in combat. Yeah. And see, with this article saying that PTSD is caused by ABA, we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from people going, look, it's causing that with the parents, it's causing that with the kids. I want to be clear that I think that it's very possible that there are a lot of individuals who have PTSD that are on the autism spectrum. And I know for a fact, as one, I've had someone look me in the face and tell me that I have PTSD that is a person who's qualified to say that. But it is not because my child has autism. Right. Not. And it is not because my son got good quality ABA. Right. That is not why I have PTSD. I have PTSD from all the things I had to do so that he could get quality ABA. Yeah. That's the reality of that. And I'm still happily married, thankfully, but the arguments that my husband and I have had have never been over my child, have never been over his behavior, have never been over his quality ABA program. It's been over figuring out how to pay for, how to get the paperwork in, how to do all of those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the case. I mean, I'm sure families and individuals with autism, there's so many stressors that are occurring. As you said, paying for the education and paying beyond the education. Yes. Making sure that you still have a healthy relationship with your partner is other stress and throwing that in. And those are absolutely other stressors that contribute. And I want to be clear, I believe that every individual should have a voice and should be giving their opinion. Absolutely. My concern is just when people do research that's just not accurate research or done well, and the influence that could have so that other families coming up are going to not be able to get the intervention so that their children can have those voices.
And when somebody is, I believe, taking advantage of our adults on the autism spectrum by asking them a question that isn't well asked, what I have a pretty healthy amount of friends that are individuals who are on the autism spectrum, some who had ABA, some who did not have ABA. Right. And when I talk to all of those people, if I talk to the friends that I have who had ABA, I will be honest with you, most of them don't remember a lot about the ABA intervention. What they remember, what they say, we've had them on the show, you can Google the interviews. They say, I remember people coming over to the house to play with me. Yep. I remember, and they only remember a couple of them. They don't even remember all the therapists. They don't really have a memory of that. But if you talk to them about what was stressful during their childhood, They will talk about, you know, my parents arguing about, and I didn't know what it was.
Right.
They argue, they talk about what was stressful is that other kids sometimes didn't meet them where they were, that teachers didn't meet them where they were. I have yet to have had anyone talk to me about, you know what I remember is a day when we were doing ABA and I didn't get the answer right.
Yeah.
Right? I never, ever have heard that. And so I think taking advantage of those individuals by asking them a question that doesn't really get to what's really stressing them out.
Right.
What I do hear from friends who are adults who are on the autism spectrum that didn't have ABA, they sometimes have huge feelings and complaints because they have heard things. They have heard things that seem to disrespect what they understand, but that is from them hearing about it, which is a different thing. And I honor that as well. You have concerns about something you've heard about. I've invited people to come and see ABA so that they can see what it's like.
Same with us. We have at our agency, we have open door policy. When someone's concerned, it's come and look what it looks like, and then make your judgment after that.
But you're right, though. We cannot have people putting in jeopardy the people who are coming now and saying, I would like this therapy for my child, and not being able to have access to that because of a misconception.
Right.
Please interview people in a proper way if you have questions.
Yeah, and so what we were concerned about, the special interest group, the executive council, which is all clinicians, some researchers and clinicians, Mary Jane Weiss, who's just this fabulous clinician, Bob Ross, who's a clinician, Joseph Sharon, who's a clinician. We just said we couldn't just let this go. We couldn't put behavior intervention in the lives of individuals with autism and their families in jeopardy. So we just wrote a response to it and just broke it down of what our concerns are, what our problems were. We did it, we made it free so anyone can go in it. So we raised money to make sure that we can publish it for free so that any family member, any behavior analyst, any politician can go click on it, download it today. It's in Advances in Autism, and they can see our response to this article to know that, you know, what they're saying is just not a good portrayal or an accurate portrayal of how research should be done. And if we're interested in this topic, and we should be interested in looking at these things, there's better ways to do it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you guys were willing to look at it and go, is there any amount of truth to this? I appreciate that you were in that, because we all need to be aware. But where can they find the response? Where can we go online to find it?
It's in Advances in Autism. So if you Google Advances in Autism, and then they'll have a search key, and you just put LEAF, L-E-A-F. It'll pop up, you just click on it, and it'll say, like PDF, you just click on it, and it's yours. Download it, save it to your computer. You can pass it out, you can pass it on Facebook. You can. We made sure we raised money so that we can make it open to everyone.
Okay. Now, you also have here that you want to talk about the importance of implementing the progressive model and quality intervention to individuals. Now, I don't know, I know what quality intervention is, but what's the progressive model?
Yeah, so I was trained by people who started either the field of behavior intervention or people who are part of the UCLA Young Autism Project. And so I'm heavily influenced by them. And for us, the progressive model is that you're using clinical judgment, meaning we're not just going to follow a protocol, we're not going to follow a script. We're going to look at the child, we're going to look at the family, we're going to look at the environment, we're going to look how the child's doing on that day. And our therapists are able to make decisions in the moment based on a lot of factors to best work with that child and that family. So instead of just going into a session and just saying, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and just follow like that, like a recipe. It's they go in and they have a game plan, but then they'll switch from that game plan based on how the child's doing, the family's doing, what's going on that day. So we came up with, we were at a university presenting, I was at a university, and someone said they didn't like behavior intervention. And I was just like, okay, this is great.
What you talking about?
Yeah, I'm going to present on this for 2 hours. This will be lovely. They came up and said, oh, I love what you talked about. Could you write an article on this? And so we wrote an article, and we said progressive, just meaning that the field should be improving upon itself.
Of course.
Like what we do today, hopefully is different than what we do 3 years ago. Hopefully we're getting better. And what we're doing today is hopefully better than 3 years previously. So it's just all about in-the-moment decision-making and really being flexible and working with the child and the family as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I will be honest, my first reaction is like, oh, are there people not doing it this way?
Yeah, unfortunately there is.
Okay.
And unfortunately I see it all too often across the country.
You know, one of the things that we, a couple of years ago, when we first started the show, because we've been on now for 8 years, which is crazy to think about, but when we first started the show, we were talking all about ABA and about how everybody needed to get access and there wasn't insurance funding when we first started. Then once insurance funding started to come in state by state, and the questions that we were getting from people, I was like, what? What do you mean? I don't understand even the question. And we realized that it was so important to start talking about quality ABA because it's not, it was so depressing to me to go, oh, you mean everybody's not, and we've talked a lot on the show about what the hallmarks are. I'd love to know from you, like, is there anything that you send parents to or anything that you say to parents when they say, how would I know a quality, if I don't know ABA and I'm coming in fresh, how do I know that I'm in a good quality ABA program?
Yeah, I think one, for me, I always tell them you want to look at who the directors are, who the supervisors are, where did they get their experience? Like if I take my son to a doctor, I ask him or her questions about where did they get their experience, what training do they have. I think that sets it apart. And then the second part is how much do they care about training their supervisors? How much do they care about training their staff? So at our agency, we're spending 1 or 2 months training our staff before they are independently working with kids. And the reason for this is we have such a powerful job. I mean, we're taking children's lives in our hands and hopefully developing it for the better. And so I want to make sure training is there. The other thing I just say is, what's your philosophy? Like, this is what I tell parents to ask, what's your philosophy? If they say their philosophy is they're just following this book to a T, like I would say, run. It's like, what you should be hearing on the key words are, it's individualized. It's going to be based on the child's needs. It's going to be quality, and they'll define quality on training, a whole curriculum, not just on language. It's not reducing aberrant behavior, but working on social, working on play. So it should be this wraparound service that they'll have partnerships and collaborate with other professionals, other families. You know, for me, a thing I hate hearing, and I see this because I teach graduate students and sometimes, is they're like, oh, we're just there to work with a child. And it's just like, no, you're working with the child in the context of a family. And so you have to understand how the siblings play into this. You have to understand how to work with the mothers, the fathers, the grandparents. And so making sure that they're not just saying, work only with the child, but no, you're going to be working with the family. I think those are kind of important parts. And the last part is making sure you're doing evidence-based procedures. And that there's research behind it, and you're just not going off and doing, you know, dolphin therapy and spending time away from that because there's no evidence to that, and that's going to take away time.
Well, I love all of the things that you're saying. I mean, I think they're exactly the things that we say here all the time because, you know, it's so important that people understand what it is that they're getting. One of the weird things that I think when we got insurance, it allowed parents to not we didn't have to fight as hard to get it, so it allowed parents to not know as much about it, which has been a negative thing.
I'm 100% agreement. I think we are have the same philosophy.
We're in line.
From watching a show and listening to you speak. I mean, that's why I was so glad to be coming here.
Well,
because we have
you too.
Similar views.
It's a wonderful thing. And so I want to go back, though, to talk about just briefly, because we're running out of time. So the conference is happening on April 5th.
Yeah, it's a Friday.
So, and honestly, it's not too late if you want to be able to go to it. It's in Los Alamitos.
Los Alamitos.
So that's Southern California.
It is Southern California.
It's not far from Disneyland.
It's like 20 minutes away from Disneyland. You take the same street down and you're going to hit Disney.
There you go. So, and why not be near Disneyland?
Yeah, that's perfect.
So honestly, you could go to the conference on Friday, you can go to the Autism Mardi Gras in Fullerton on Saturday, and then you could hit Disneyland on Sunday.
It sounds like a perfect weekend.
That is the perfect way to start Autism Awareness Month, April. So there is the flyer for the conference. You can see the pictures of the fabulous speakers. And I didn't ask you this before. Are you regional center vendored? Is there a possibility for them to?
They can contact us, and I think it's by different regional centers. It's by the different ones.
Because sometimes if you're in California and you want to go to a conference, regional center will pay a portion or all of your ticket price.
I can't speak to all because there's different regional centers, but there's certain ones I believe.
Reach out and it's definitely a worthwhile thing to go, you guys. And if we want to know more about ABAI and the SIG, just in general, where would we go for that?
I would Google Applied Behavior Analysis International Conference, and then I think they have a tab. You just put Autism SIG in it, and that will show up. I also have it's autism. It's ABAI, sorry, Autism SIG on Facebook.
Okay.
So if you just do the search button, that's the easiest.
Okay. ABAI Autism SIG, and SIG is SIG, you guys.
Yep.
And then if we want to read that article, the response to the article about PTSD, again, where do we go for that?
Advances in Autism, or any listener can email me and I will gladly send it along.
Okay, fabulous. And you also mentioned that, you are at a center that you, in addition to all these things, you are working in this field actively. And so where are you at? Where if people want to know more about you and your center?
So we're in Southern California. We're in Seal Beach, which is also close to Disney, also close to LAX.
There you go.
And it's autismpartnershipfoundation.org.
And so you treat also from the foundation?
Yeah, we treat.
Oh, okay.
We treat from the foundation. There's also a for-profit company that we work with, Autism Partnership. So we have about 40 to 50 children right now that we treat in our center. And then we have international offices as well. So offices in Singapore and Hong Kong and London and Australia.
The name of all that is
Autism Partnership.
Autism Partnership. Okay, fabulous.
Yeah.
Well, I have so enjoyed having you here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you taking the drive to get all the way up here.
I'm glad to do so.
And I hope that you guys have an amazing conference, and I hope that some parents get there. I think, I know as a parent, sometimes it can feel overwhelming going to a conference and putting yourself out there. But anytime you get the opportunity to do that, you guys, just sitting in the room with people who are trying to find a better way to do the thing that you're doing is always going to help your soul. Sometimes it's so easy as a parent to sit at home and feel like you are on the planet Mars by yourself, even though you go online and you see that there are other parents, but it can feel so overwhelming sometimes, like how are we ever going to get there? I always use the expression, whose arms are we in? Because there was a period of time when I would not sleep. I could not sleep because I said, I have this child and I have to help him. And it's not just him. Look at all these other children. Who's helping us? Whose arms are we in?
Right.
And when you go to a conference like this and you see how many people's arms you're in, people who have chosen to be in the field of autism, like I didn't choose. I was drafted. I was drafted and I'm happily here, right? And this is my tribe now. But I didn't choose this. And when I'm around a room full of people who chose this, it does so much for my psyche. Makes me feel like there is hope.
That's hopefully the message that comes out of it, that there's hope and that there's a lot of professionals here who are trying to get better and provide quality intervention to children with autism and their families.
So do yourself this favor. And again, where do we go to register for the tickets?
www.autismpartnershipfoundation.org or Eventbrite or www.autismpartnership.com.
Okay. All right. So all of those things, what great resources that we gave. We are totally out of time. I want to say that we're back next Wednesday with a live show, and we do have Dr. Grampichet on Wednesday answering your questions, plus an amazing show for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We hope that you'll be here. We are not doing a live show a week from Thursday. I have like 7 places I have to be on that day, and none of them can be here. But I do want to put it in your ear for those of you that are watching on a regular basis. 2 things, really quickly. Don't forget that we're doing that contest today for the tickets to the conference, for TACA's conference that's happening in a couple of weeks in Atlanta, Georgia. So make sure that you like this feed on Facebook Live and that you put whether you want to go to Costa Mesa or whether you want to go in a couple of weeks to Atlanta, Georgia. That's the TACA conference. Please detail why you want to be one of the 5 people chosen to have 2 tickets. We're going to be choosing those winners at some point over the weekend. You've got 24 hours to be counted in for that contest. So that's one thing. And then we'll notify you over the weekend. You won't have to wait till next Wednesday to do that. But I also want to give you a programming note that starting in April, we are shifting and we are going to be on Monday through Friday from 10 to 11. 1 hour at a time, but Monday through Friday instead of 2 hours on Wednesday and 2 hours on Thursday. We'll keep reminding you of that. All right, we will see you next Wednesday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.